This next chat is with Rosie Grant and Lisa van der Zanden of Natural Endings, a funeral home in Todmorden. And death is a thing which affects literally all of us at some stage, and they try to see everyone through it with dignity and respect for the families and listening to what they want and making sure the families can be involved. They're really interesting, and it's unusual to have two women running a funeral home. We're here in Todd in the office of Natural Endings and talking to Rosie Grant and Lisa
van der Zanden.
Rosie and Lisa are undertakers at Natural Endings. So, Rosie, if I can just ask you first, how did it come about? How did you start doing this kind of work?
Well, it's way back in 1995. My mum was terminally ill, and she was an artist and she was a feminist, and she said to me, I don't want one of those conveyor belt funerals. She just said the kind of funeral she didn't want, not the kind of funeral she did want. So I just had to do some research.
So by conveyor belt funeral, did you mean one that's kind of over in half an hour? Or
Yeah, and kind of rent a vicar, with a faith that wasn't her faith, and somebody that didn't know her, and in a crematorium and that kind of thing. And she's objected to particular flowers that, like carnations and things that are quite...
Good for her. She sounds like a woman who knew her mind.
She did, and she listened to Radio 4 a lot, as we all did in the 90s.
Some of us still do.
And she'd heard about the Natural Death Centre, which is an amazing charity that's still going now, that offers free advice. And so I got in touch with them and found a woodland burial site. And then when she died, it was just late December, and I didn't feel a need for her. It was very, very cold. I didn't feel a need for her to be taken away by some guys that I didn't know. I just cared for her at home. And her friends made a coffin for her, and we hired a thatched barn and had her funeral in a barn, because you don't have to have a funeral in a crematorium or a church. You can have it in many different places. And then I was handheld through that with a funeral director that was just about to set up a funeral home. And then one morning, a few months later, I just sat up in bed and went, oh, of course, I need to be an undertaker. And I rang that wonderful woman, and she was a nurse, and she was kind of trying to figure out how to do it herself, and we just figured it out between us. And we were working in London and Sheffield, and it was quite a steep learning curve for both of us. And so I worked for them for a while. They're pioneers called Peace Funerals. They were kind of the early alternative funeral directors. And then I stopped working for them and did something different for a while. And then I set up Natural Endings. In April this year, it'll be 20 years ago. We were working in South Manchester for a while, and then we started working in Todmorden just over 2.5 years ago.
Right.
And the community's really embraced us, and it's been going really, really well here. You walk through the big hall on the way in. And you had your mum's reception here before we set up, didn't you?
Yes. Did you call it a departy?
Departy.
I like that. Yeah, it just kind of passed me by for a second. But yes, we had that here, and it was lovely. Yeah.
And that was before we were operating as a funeral directors. So it's going very well. And I was trying to find the words for what we do, knowing that you were coming over, and I just happened to read this. I go on Instagram quite a lot. I like Instagram, and I spot occasional funeral directors like us. And I found a new one in Australia today. And can I just read this little thing that they wrote?
Please do, yeah.
Because it's kind of what we do. When people come to us, they are often at the end of what they know. They make a call, send an email, open the door and arrive, often exhausted, shocked, unsure of the next steps of how to make sense of meaning of the deaths of their people. And yet, whether they know it or not, everyone brings their meaning-making tools with them, be it curiosity, ethics, faith, culture, a belief in the healing power of story and community, of a great party, or of practical simplicity. Little by little, as people move through the spaces of our rooms, of our funeral home, the relational work of listening and responding and attuning happens. As we move with them, we see individuals and families and communities begin the reweaving of how to live anew from this place of love and loss. And I think because my previous work, I was a psychotherapist, I'm really interested in people and communities coming together and meaning making, which is often through words, but also through actions and music and being together and doing things together. And that the key to the way that Lisa and I work is feeling that a funeral needs to be built by a number of people rather than just kind of passively turning up and sitting and listening to somebody that they don't know and didn't know the person. So in the way that your family built that lovely party for your mum, like they contributed in different ways, didn't they? Matt and Daisy came and decorated the room, and there was a slideshow and the toast, and all those different people got something more from that by being fully involved.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So Lisa, what drew you to this sort of work? Have you always, is it what you've always done?
So I've been kind of in the kind of funeral world for, I think probably about 7 or 8 years now. But I mean, initially I kind of had, I've not had any death's name, not like Rosie, where like, you know, the death of her mum triggered this.
Yeah.
It was a little poster I read somewhere about a death doula, which like years ago, which something clicked in my mind, like, oh my god, you can, like, this is, you kind of forget that it's a job, I think. You don't.
So that is being with somebody as they die.
Yeah.
A bit like being a midwife for a.
It is, yeah. So you've got birth doulas are a bit more well known, but there's also people that work as a death doula. Now, I figured out quite quickly that wasn't what I wanted to do. But it did open up a door to me realizing that, you know, being an undertaker is a job.
Lisa started with behind the scenes kind of mortuary work for a large well-known chain. And the roles are very much divided. There's back of house and front of house, and she didn't have much contact with bereaved families. It was mainly mortuary work in a very, very, very large mortuary. And do you want to continue from there?
So I started there, which I always knew was kind of the reason why I was interested mainly was I wanted to get into green undertaking, green funerals, or like in some way work within kind of making the industry, which I find it very not a very nice word, but like all the aspects of it greener. So I wasn't sure if that would look like that I would maybe manage a burial ground, or if I wanted to go more into like the kind of the manufacturing side of it, of like manufacturing eco coffins, things like that. But then I took a job with one of these big chains down in Bristol, and I kind of learned a lot about caring for the people who have died, and then got quite a lot of experience doing that, and didn't really like the way things were done. I felt like quite often families' wishes were kind of glossed over by whatever policy they thought was the right thing, which sometimes for us it's always whatever the family wants to do, that's what we do. So anyway, so we worked with that for a little bit, and then the big city became a bit too expensive for us. So my husband is from Blackburn, so we decided to move back up north, and we set up our own funeral support service. So throughout COVID, we worked with we did the logistics for funeral directors, independent funeral directors mainly, and we worked a lot with the coroners. So we would get a call at any time of the day, it could be in the middle of the night, and the Lancashire coroner would give us a ring to say that somebody died suddenly, and then we would then take that person from where they've died to a hospital mortuary, and that was our main job, which I learned a lot. I'm glad we did it, because I think I've gained a lot of experience on how to kind of be in situations that can be quite stressful, can be quite upsetting. But yeah, after a few years, that was enough. And Rosie'd already found us and asked us for some advice around some practical things when she was setting up here. And yeah, after a while, I got offered a job, and yeah,
Lovely.
here we are.
Yeah. So are people surprised when they come that it's two women running it, or do you think it helps to be women? Or, I personally think it would do, but
I think people feel. I think not a lot of people think about it until they see us, or until we tell them, oh, by the way, it's going to be. Often it's me or Rosie that will go and take that person into care, and especially if it's a woman, and we let them know, like, it's going to be us that's going to be dressing her and looking after, your mum or your grandma. Then they start to realise, oh wait, this is actually quite comforting, knowing it's not maybe something a lot of people consciously think about.
Yeah, in a lot of funeral homes, bereaved families wouldn't even meet the people that washed and dressed their person. And when we're arranging a funeral, we offer every family the opportunity to come and join us in washing and dressing their person. What percentage take-up do you think we have of that?
Oh gosh,
It's not
it's not a great deal. Maybe like 1 out of 10, maybe. I don't know, it's hard to say.
But they get a lot from it.
yeah,
And
sure.
Death used to be more in people's homes than in institutions.
I remember your mum telling us, Dave.
Yeah, my grandmother is from an Irish family, and she used to wash bodies. It's an old Irish Catholic tradition that every sort of village, or by the time they moved over to Liverpool, every street would have someone who would do that for or with the bereaved. So my mum was doing that when she was a teenager.
She was helping her, wasn't she?
Yeah. I mean, she learned, and again, that was that old traditional thing. She learned dressmaking and all kinds of other traditional things from her mother as well. But it was a traditional thing in the past, and one of those traditions that was lost. And in some ways, it looks like you're bringing back, which
It was
I think is a good thing.
professionalised,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
And we feel that, it's something the community did quite naturally until industrialisation. So we're trying to bring back aspects of that, some families would be like, oh, no, and some families wouldn't even want to spend time with their person that had died. But the ones that do, they get a lot from it, don't they?
Yeah.
We worked with last year we worked with a chap whose dad had died, and his dad was become a dad when he was quite old, so there's quite a big age gap, and he'd been an undertaker, but his son had never known him as an undertaker, because he'd retired when he had his son, and he came and washed his dad with us and dressed him, and he was kind of embodying his dad's skills, and it meant a lot to him, didn't it?
Yeah, it's something. It's so beautiful when somebody feels like that's the last thing they want to do, and it's so gentle, and and also, this is regardless if there's family involved or not. But when you dress somebody, you're kind of bringing their identity back a little bit, it's just a really beautiful process.
It's a deeply human kind of thing. And this morning, Lisa went to somebody's home. The lady died yesterday, and because it was cold, it was very easy for her to stay at home. They'd been caring for her at home. She didn't have to be taken quickly. And then Lisa went over this morning and washed and dressed her with her family at home, didn't you?
Yeah.
And that was very
And lots
beautiful.
of people wouldn't know that you'd be allowed to do that. You know, they sort of think, oh no, you have to, get the death certificate, and the doctor will take them away to a hospital mortuary or, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, they wouldn't necessarily know.
It's
they
like
could
you
do
say,
that
Rosie,
at home.
it's been professionalised, and that has been taken away from families, and you're offering the choice. It strikes me. Again, as I said before, I'm from a big Irish Catholic family in Liverpool, so there's an awful lot of births, deaths, weddings, etc. And so families would have their regular sort of undertaker. We always went to the same one. So when you met the undertaker quite a lot at different funerals.
Yeah.
And they're really good in that, they make it easy. But by making it easy, they take some of that, the personal issues out of it.
I think so. When I started, the attitude in the funeral sector was very much, oh, don't worry, we'll take care of everything, which is quite kind of minimising.
And sometimes people are grateful for that, aren't they? And then
Yeah.
afterwards they think, oh, I wish I'd done more of the kind of preparation. It's easy to think, oh, somebody else take care of it. I don't want to think about it.
We were at one just before Christmas, and the priest had forgotten the widower's name.
I think it can be quite hurtful, can't it? I've stood there and heard people say the deceased and the deceased's family, like, hey, they've got a name. And I think a lot of people in the UK are getting a bit sick of going to the same kind of funerals, and it just can feel like quite an empty experience. And we do lots of different kinds of funerals, but I would say quite a lot of non-religious funerals. So with those, you are building a funeral from nothing, because there's no, like, with Roman Catholic funerals, you've got certain rituals. You've got the incense, and you've got the prayers, and you've got the mass, and all that kind of thing. But we collaborate with families to kind of build these rituals, because it's not just talking. We do all sorts of things. If somebody, because if you're being hurried through a crematorium, you can't have like a toast, and you can't have, like, a lot of funerals we do around here are for artists, so it feels obvious to embody that artist by actually making something at their funeral. So we do quite a lot of that kind of thing, and also they don't have to be 9 to 5. We'll have a funeral in the evening or a weekend. We've got the fire pits, so people can have some time outside. Have a look,
Is that outside the building here?
Yeah.
The old post office.
A couple of fire pits.
That's nice.
I mean, how many people do come in? People come in sometimes to arrange a funeral in here, and they come in and this is most of the time they assume they have to go to Parkwood, or like they have to go to or maybe Burnley or Oakworth or whatever, and they come in the hall, and like very quickly we like, if you like, you can have a funeral here, and they go back and think like, oh, I thought I had to go to Parkwood and I don't like it there.
And they decorate the space, and they become familiar with the space. So whereas at the crematorium they're quite passive and well behaved and sit there and listen and consume, they're used to the space. They decorate it. We've had people bring furniture in. We had a chap the other day. He said he was bringing some of his dad's artwork. He backed down with quite a large van. He opened the roller shutter and it was full, and there was like about 300 pieces of his dad's artwork, and he completely covered the space. And he put tables out with all the sketches on, and people came and they chose pieces of work. Gig came from the Golden Lion, and she found a picture of the cross at Hepton Stall, which is her other pub, and one lady was like looking for nudes, hoping there wasn't any too naughty ones because she did offer that. And then everyone went away with a piece of his artwork, and it was like a retrospective. It was fantastic.
It's like at your mum's, everybody went away with one of her crystal glasses.
Yeah.
And we had a jazz pianist in, because that was, that's what she loved.
Yeah, we still get pictures sent like on her birthday and things of somebody raising a glass to her with one of her own glasses. And it's things like that. But yeah, unfortunately my mum's was during COVID, so there were all kinds of
restricted,
weird restrictions, but you helped a lot by letting us have this hall where people could be a bit separated, or whatever the word was.
Socially distanced,
yeah,
remember?
it's weird, isn't it, how you forget it's not that long ago. But do you think the COVID time affected people's attitudes towards funerals? Because I know people were horrified that you could only have like 10 people or 30 people. They kept changing the rules, and then they seemed to come to terms with it. And I think that's the reason for all these no-fuss cremations now. And I'm thinking, actually, I want a fuss when I go, And I don't know, there's something to me a bit weird. Like, it's a bit like the assisted dying thing. We don't want to be a burden to anybody else. All these adverts are, I don't want my family to have to pay for a funeral. And you're thinking, why not? If that bothers you can leave them the money yourself. But, I mean, what do you think about those sort of attitudes?
I've not really seen any of the adverts, but I've heard that they say things like, going, why get together and be sad? And it's like, but sad is part of love.
Yes, that's right.
If you get to your own grave without having been sad about someone else having died, that would be a bit tragic, wouldn't it? It would mean that no one had impacted you, and
that's a really good way to put it. Yeah,
a really good funeral will have everything, and we need to, if we're going to be sad, let's gather and be sad together. That's funerals are very connecting as well, aren't they? Bringing communities together, and if we find if an older person has died, that the younger family will hear all sorts of new information about them, and they might just know them as Grandad, but then they find out about them as a colleague and a friend and a neighbour, and
And that's one of the great things that I like about funerals, is that finding out things and the funny stories. I know it's a sad time, but like at my mother's funeral, the priest who did the mass was part of the family, and he started off by saying, I want you to all to remember this as Auntie Lily, so we will be laughing today, because that's what she was like.
Yes, it was.
And the funeral we went to just before Christmas, Lynn, it was in the mid-80s, I think, but just one of the funny stories that's come to mind is one of our younger relatives had sort of stayed, left some clothes, and she had these young, trendy jeans with holes all over them. So by the time she came back, Lynn had not only washed them, but she sewn them up as well.
Sewn up all the holes.
And it's not an important thing. I think she was a bit annoyed at first, but it's not an important thing. But it's just little stories like that you hear about people, as well as, that he played international football when he was 20s and now he's 95 and just died, or whatever it happens to be. And I really like the way you encourage that element of a death.
Yeah. And I think Because I think the bit after the funeral, some people call it the funeral tea or the reception or the
The
departing,
party is lovely.
is as important as the funeral, isn't it? Because
Absolutely.
people are feeling less formal, and we kind of bring a bit of that into the funeral here. I think people are wanting to move away from formality and just sitting and listening, and they want to contribute and build a funeral together as a community. Honestly, there's so many different ways of doing things. Sometimes after the ceremony they might have a tea or a coffee or a toast, and then they might go to a crematorium or a burial site.
Yeah.
But quite a lot of the families are choosing to not go to the crematorium. So Lisa and I, my team, take the person to the crematorium, and they just carry on being together rather than the family going off to Burnley and joining the party 40 minutes or an hour later. And that cuts out. We find a lot of families are not massively keen on the funeral procession and the cars and the formal aspects, and then by cutting those elements out, that they get as long as they need. They're not being rushed out of a crematorium, and it's deeply personalised. It's built up from the core of that person that they love.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the kind of mechanics of it. Like you say, it could all be different for whoever was doing it, couldn't it?
So basically, you explain the whole process from death to, party, gathering or whatever, and they can be involved in it as much or as little as they want.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you find with a sudden death and a really shocked family, they might not be as able, but they still might be able to do little things. So our job is really to attune to people, and so if you have a very shocked family, you won't make loads of suggestions. Sometimes the family just need to kind of get through it, really, and have things as soothing as possible, but kind of actualising things that to try and help them really understand that sad reality of what's happened. But then, with an older person, people have had time to think about it beforehand, or the older person might have discussed with their family what they want.
Yeah,
Yes.
So you can be found online.
Yes, how do people contact you?
It's just naturalendings.co.uk. We're also on Instagram and Facebook.
And I didn't say, but I should have done, that you won an award for the Best Funeral Directors, a national award.
Yeah, last year we won the Good Funeral Awards. We won Funeral Director of the Year, and it's national awards, so we're very proud.
That's fantastic. Well done.
Yes, and the whole thing seems to suit this valley as well.
Yes, it's a perfect place.
It really does. The families bring so much. It's just wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you for that. It's been really interesting, enlightening.